Welcome back to another episode of the Budget Overland Podcast. I'm your host, Benji, and today's episode's fun because we're diving more into family-oriented camping trips. So I've got Tyson here, and he's from Arkansas, and he's got a rather large family, and we're going to go into that and what works for him and how they do it. But before we get into that, guys, if you haven't already, go over to Apple Podcasts, leave Budget Overland a review. We are almost to the 200 mark, and that's going to be a Super Swag Pack Plus giveaway. You'll get everything in the Super Swag Pack Plus. You'll get a Moreflate quad hose system to inflate and deflate your tires. So thanks to Moreflate for doing that. Guys, it's once you enter over there, you're entered to win. So that's really cool. Another thing, if you guys haven't already, sign up for our monthly insider deals. You can go over to budgetoverlandportal.com and sign up for that. Each month, I partner with companies to bring our community some discounts on their products. So go over there. It's absolutely free. You guys can leave at any given time. So without further ado, Mr. Tyson. Brother, how are you?
What's happening? Good. How are you, Benji?
Well, yeah, man. This seems like a little like deja vu. And so without trying to act like I've got my crap together, Tyson and I met a couple nights ago to record this. And this software that I'm using, it sometimes messes with my computer. So anyway, we had to re-record, and I appreciate you, Tyson. It is Wednesday night. The podcast comes out tomorrow, so we're gonna pretend like we haven't met yet.
Yeah, like nothing like winging it. Let's get it going.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How'd you get into this? Overlanding, car camping, weekend warrior stuff. So how'd you get involved with this?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was into, the bicycles. I was like the bicycle mechanic for the neighborhood, and that naturally just turned into vehicles as I got older. And I started with a little Chevy S10 that I put a lift kit on and some bigger tires and started playing in the mud, two-wheel drive, just trying to be somebody back at 16,
Nice.
and then eventually grew up and got a Jeep, and now I'm in a 2021 4Runner TRD off-road and drive so much better than a Jeep.
So what made you go from a Jeep life to a Toyota life?
So two things. I actually got employed with Toyota. So I work as a tire and wheel specialist for them, and I just comfortability, versatility of having the 4Runner. We take a lot of road trips as a family, so the Jeep is great. It's a great off-road utensil, but on the road, it's not the most comfortable driving down the road, especially when you have the gear swapped and things like that. So it was really important to us to have something that was a little more comfort.
Right, on the highway as well,
So,
off-road.
oh, absolutely, yeah. So. And then, having 6 kids between the fiancé and I, we needed more space. Obviously, we don't have them riding with us all the time. But, when you have, the 3 of them back there plus their luggage, you need just more room than what a Jeep had to offer at the time. So
how did you get involved with like the camping with the vehicle and all the gadgets and gizmos?
Yeah, so I had a buddy of mine move out to Northwest Arkansas. I'm originally from Fort Worth, and down in Fort Worth, it was more just the off-road, not a whole lot of overlanding. And we came out here, and Northwest Arkansas has some of the most beautiful areas to camp and things like that. So I bought a ground tent and started camping out of a ground tent in the 4Runner, and eventually moved up to rooftop tent and things like that. So the off-road just came naturally to me. So it was just an easy transition to add the camping. I remember going camping as a kid with our family, and, my aunt had like a little pop-up camper, and we would tent camp and pop-up camp. So the rooftop tent just makes it so much easier setting up and things like that. So,
yeah. So, when did it come to you? Like, when did you realize hey, this outdoor driving, wheeling, and camping thing's kind of people are doing it now? They're calling it something. Like, how long ago was that?
That was about 3 years ago. Is when I got into it. I was got the Forerunner in March of 2020. So that's when I really started taking into consideration the camping side of things versus just the off-road side of things. And then, we enjoy doing stuff as a family, and to me, in my opinion, camping and overlanding is a cheap way for us to be able to get out as a family, and you're not dumping thousands of dollars into hotels, and get to just see the beautiful nature, Buffalo River, things like that. So.
Yeah, I remember because, we talk sometimes on the show, like, how much a rooftop tent is. Typically a decent one's around $200 to $2,500. And, if you go to a decent hotel, that's $200 and something dollars a night, times however many times a year you go. And I always tell people, if you're going to go camping more than like 5 to 10 times a year, like trips, not nights, but like 5 to 10 trips a year, you should heavily invest in a decent setup, not just minimalist, but whatever works for you too. It's okay to spend money on something you're going to use forever.
100%. I mean, I didn't even know about rooftop tents right away. My buddy Chris, that moved out here, that I kind of followed from Fort Worth, he had a Tacoma, and he bought the 23-0, and he had it on a rack, and I was like, man, that's super cool. Someday I'm going to grow up to be just like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool, like seeing him being able to set up camp real quick and things like that, and it just naturally poured over to, what I was up to and doing. And, I promise you, I got pictures from when we first set up camp, and he's got his rooftop, and I'm on a ground tent, because it wasn't something that I was too sure that everybody was going to be involved in right away. And, ground tent, there still can be pricey, but we just got a basic one, I think it's a 13-person tent from Academy, to fit all the kiddos in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they ended up taking off and loving it, and so we just made it our hobby. We don't even call it Overland anymore. It's just yeah, it's huge, man. Oh yeah, it had like wild. Different rooms in it. It's got like had like the sunshade room.
God.
So yeah.
Let's talk about your kids and how they get. How old were they when they got involved doing this thing?
So my youngest, we had her out there when she was, she had to have been at least one, when we took her on her first camping trip. So that was awesome. It was really cool to have her out there. Just getting used to being out in the camping world. We had a pack and play that we brought with us and set it up in the tent for her. And I remember it was super cold. She was in this big snowsuit looking thing, and just trying to keep everybody warm. But she slept like a baby the first night, all the way through the whole night. It was crazy. Didn't even wake up, not once. So, but yeah. So the kids now. So I have three step kids and 3 biological kids. My oldest daughter is 16. My oldest stepdaughter is 15. I have a 13-year-old stepson, a 12-year-old 12-year-old biological daughter, 10-year-old stepdaughter, and a 3-year-old biological daughter. So
wow,
we got a wide range of ages.
You guys should live on a farm somewhere with those kind of numbers.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
put them kids to work.
That's right. We got a basketball team if we ever want to start one.
Right. Oh man. So they enjoy going, and I'm trying to remember kind of the questions I had the other night, but it's like, do they have any tasks and chores whenever they show up to camp?
Yeah, so when we first get into camp, I usually am unpacking the rooftop tent, the awning, and while they're grabbing their chairs and setting that up, and they get the table. They they all have like their little niches. My oldest stepdaughter, she loves to hammock camp, so she's
Nice.
usually scouting out of trees where she can hang her hammock and
At what age
set up.
was she like, hey, I want to sleep in a hammock?
So it's really interesting because I had a hammock that I just kind of played around with. You know, if we went to parks and things like that, I would set it up and let the kids, lay in it and relax and things like that. If they got tired, we'd let them take a nap in it or whatever. But it was, I think it was about a year and a half ago. We went camping with Charlie, one of your guests from an earlier podcast, and he actually had a friend of his that was hammock camping, and she's like, "Hey, I want to try that." And so she was 14 at the time, and she loved it. It was pretty cold, but she was nice and warm in there, and she actually stuck through it through the whole night. I thought for sure, I was like, I'll give it an hour and a half, 2 hours, but
Right.
she slept the entire night through it. So now that's kind of
I
her gig.
I experienced my first hammock camping last year, I think, or was it? No, it was maybe 2 years ago. And I never really took it. You know, you see backpackers and stuff like that do hammock style camping, and I was just always like, nah, that's not cool or whatever. You know, it didn't look practical to me. And then I
Right.
went on a trip with Jacob and Taylor, and it was really hot out, and I didn't want to sleep in my ground tent or nothing. They're just like, well, bring a hammock. So I got a hammock and slept in it. That thing was super comfortable, and it was very cool. No pun intended. It was very cool in the evenings and at night. And I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's the biggest
People
thing
should probably
when
consider
you're
it.
hanging up. Yeah, when you're hanging up there, you don't realize that like all the cold air is surrounding your whole body. So,
Mm-hmm.
like if it's going to be chillier out, you got to put something underneath you to kind of block the
Yeah.
wind from your backsides. But I mean, it is very comfortable. I've fallen asleep in a hammock plenty of times, just out hanging out in the
So
woods.
on the podcast, you guys all know who Off-Road Brian is. I've dubbed him Off-Road Brian. And so we went camping this last April. Maybe it was somewhere March, April, somewhere in there. And that was with Robert Kahn and Ryan. And we went. Anyway, Brian and I was like, hey man, let's just sleep in our hammocks. You know, whatever. It's gonna be beautiful. It's springtime. Let's do it. So Brian and I told him, I said, we need to bring a tarp because it's gonna rain. It's spring. So we're out there in the Ozarks. We don't have like a traditional looking hammock style rain fly, nothing fancy. We literally both show up with like Walmart blue tarps that were like 20 by 20s, and we're like putting them on, the trees. So out in the Ozarks, it looked like a freaking meth lab set up with for our hammocks. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy on like how much stuff that you can actually get for hammock camping. I was actually pretty impressed. We ended up getting her like a blow up pillow that hangs off the cord and stuff, and she's digging it. So, yep. But
Cool.
that's kind of how she got into the gig. But it's cool to see the kids like out there learning life lessons. Just how to start a fire, and I was splitting wood one time, and the 15-year-old came up to me and was like, hey, do you mind if I try splitting that log? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And you teach her, put the log in between your legs and swing the axe hard enough that you're going to split it, and don't cut off a toe. And of course, mom's kind of over there sweating, and but you just gotta let them learn, live and let learn. So
That's awesome. So I'm glad that they all like it, and they all probably, you have your moments here and there, but I'm sure that it's like with anything, there's gonna be likes and dislikes, but whatever.
yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing is just being able to spend time as a family where they're not into their phones and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. You get out in the middle of the Ozarks, there's no cell service, and it almost forces them to be part of the family. You're not you're not in the
Right.
screen. You're hanging out. We're enjoying our family time, and looking at the stars, and learning the different constellations and things like that. So it's fun.
It is a good time, and I think more and more, and it doesn't even have to be overlanding. It's like, weekend campers, that kind of style. It's and with diesel heaters, and we're getting into the cooler months of the year and stuff like that, and the diesel heaters really come into handy because most of us put up through this cold, nasty weather for like 5 to 6 months. And I mean, if you think about it, that's almost half a year that you don't want to camp because it's cold. But with diesel heaters, that really opens it up. And if you're driving all day on trails and stuff, you're in your vehicle anyway. So I feel like any family out there that's, you got the excuses of either it's too hot or too cold, invest in those equipment to make it comfortable for the family.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, a 0-degree sleeping bag goes a long way. And when you're in the tent, with your family, there's enough body heat to go around that. I mean, we don't have a diesel heater, so we just kind of go out there and if it's cold, we bundle up and get into the bags. And there's been a few mornings where it's pretty chilly, but for the most part, the tent warms up pretty quick, especially when you pile some bodies in there. So,
what's your guys's? And this is getting off subject just a little bit, but just camp stuff. But what's the rule? What's the first person do? The first person that gets up, what's their job?
The first person that wakes up is always me. I'm up before anybody else in the family, and I start a fire. That's
boom. That's it.
Right away. Mama won't even think about getting.
I'm like, the first person that wakes up, you got to get this fire going again. Because
absolutely.
When the rest of us wake up, we want to be warm, and then by the time that person gets the fire stoked and everything, now they're going to be cooking. So
that's right, 100%
to breakfast and warmth.
And warmth, yeah.
You got to get the coffee going too, though.
Absolutely, yeah. Mama doesn't even get out of the tent unless there's a fire going if it's cold. So
that's awesome.
If we want Mama Bear out of the rooftop, we gotta have a fire and gotta have that coffee going.
How many times a year do you guys consider like going on trips and stuff that you guys actually go out? It could be weekend trips, whatever.
Yeah, we usually do weekends. We'll leave out on a Friday night after work and stay out Saturday, Sunday, come home Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. We do that, I don't have an exact number, but probably 10, 15 times a year. And then we do hit up some of the, local events around here. RITO was the last one that we just went to. Yeah, we did Big Iron 2 weeks before that. So, we like to surround ourselves around other people who enjoy it. But my buddy Chris, he lives down the road. We try to coordinate with them, quite often to do it together. They've got a couple of kids too, so it's always nice to get the kids together and let them kind of just be kids. They go out there and.
Is Chris the one with the FJ?
No, he has the Lime Rush 4Runner now. Yeah, so.
Interesting, because there's not a whole lot of those running around.
No, he just picked up his probably within the last year. He had a Tacoma before that, but and then when Charlie's in town, he lives in Missouri, so when he's ever down here, we try to coordinate trips with him and things like that. But our goal this upcoming year, 2024, is to check out Mark Twain a little bit more. We've done a little bit like Glade Top and things like that, but we love Arkansas, and we're kind of spoiled with having the Ozarks, an hour and a half away from the house. So, our plan is to try to venture out a little bit more. I want to do the Kentucky Adventure Trail and get up to, the Mark Twain National Forest a little bit more. Just get some new areas under the belt.
What part of the Mark Twain you want to go
to? I've mapped out some stuff around Glade Top, maybe a little more north of that, just south of Branson. That Branson's a 2-hour drive for us, so we're 2.5 hours away to get where we're going. So most of our stuff is over the weekends. So we try to keep it where we're not in the car forever with the kids. They kind of get a little antsy when you go on longer road trips. But
So let me see here. So I live near Fort Leonard Wood, and south of Fort Leonard Wood, there's like Devil's Elbow and all that stuff, and then it gets even further south. That's all the Mark Twain National Forest in my area, and then it moves east of there quite a bit. There's hundreds of thousands of acres, and then the Mark Twain down by Glade Top is down southwest. And it's like the Mark Twain, there's probably like 5 or 7 different splurts of them. And the south of Missouri, there's a lot of it. And then there's the smaller ones up like north. So
yeah, well, that's kind of where I was
too.
Yeah, I have more focus on like, continuing Glade Top. We did a very short trip at Glade Top. It was I think we left on a Saturday morning, camped out, and then kind of hit the trails a little bit Sunday till about Sunday afternoon, and then we headed home. So it was great. The time that we were out there was absolutely gorgeous. We camped on the top of this bluff, and we got there at nighttime. So like the picture of the morning sunrise over that bluff was just it was something that you could never imagine how pretty it is until you're there and doing it. So that's kind of where we're at. We just want to find the cool spots and map them out and share that with friends and family and things like that. So
how do you guys plan your trips? Do you guys look out, or just kind of how much do you look into it, and then as far as mapping it?
Yeah, so we have Gaia. So I usually jump on Gaia and kind of get a general idea where we want to go, and take a look at maybe some people have done YouTube videos and kind of get an idea of like where they're going, and then once you get out there, I mean, you can never plan for everything. If it's something that the Forerunner's not capable and we're solo, or if it's questionable, you don't want to risk damaging your vehicle or getting stuck when you're by yourself. We had an incident where I kind of made the wrong turn and ended up stuck in a mud hole for like 9 hours before somebody got us out.
Whoa!
Yeah, it was. We were solo, and I don't have a winch, and
Gosh.
I buried the Forerunner to the frame. It was just a bad day. And
know that.
yeah, so, and we had our 9-year-old with us. She was super cool through the whole thing. I mean, she's just calm, and it had to have been tough to be
For
sitting in the car for that
9
long.
hours. How'd you guys get help? How'd you signal out? What happened?
So it was up by Woolham Ford. We had cell service, thankfully, but we had to walk like almost a mile and a half to get the cell service, and reached out to some people, posted on Facebook in certain groups, and finally a wrecker company came out and was able to get us out, but they were super cool. They ended up getting their vehicle stuck. It was a night. I'll put it that way. Yeah. So
did they recover themselves?
They recovered themselves, and it was 4 vehicles and a tractor later. They finally got to where the Forerunner was.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it was quite the night. We'll put it that way. But I mean, it's just part of the plan. I mean, you can't plan for it. Even if I had a winch, there was no spots. There was no spots. Even if you had a winch,
they just like lasso it and throw it on the mud. It's like.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously the wife was like, it's definitely something that we're gonna need, something to get us out of those situations, next time, so we're not sitting there for 9 hours.
I always tell people, I'm like, if you go on a trip and you're not talking about it 6 months, a year from then, was it memorable? Probably not. It's
Absolutely
like these trips. The ones that you break stuff or do stupid things, those are the ones you laugh about. Like it's
absolutely,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean,
and I love it. That's my favorite part about this is the stories and stuff.
it's all an adventure, right? And that's really what you're doing is you're making lasting adventure memories for you and your family. I mean, if we hadn't done it, we wouldn't have anything to talk about, right? If we were just chilling at the house over the weekend, like how memorable is watching TV? You get out there, you learn, what different plants are, you
Yeah.
learn nature, you learn, the ways of life of starting a fire and getting collecting what wood you need if it's dry. Those are things that the kids don't learn. I mean, when I was a kid, my grandparents had a wood burning stove and wood burning furnace. It's something that I learned that at a young age, but it's not something that our kids nowadays are typically exposed to. So it's fun to teach them. This is how they used to make fire. This is how they used to cook, and they absorb it, and they're not going to get that from a book. I can tell you that.
No. It's
So
crazy that, and that's our responsibility, as parents, to do this kind of stuff because, your kids want to be you pretty much, to a certain age, and they're like, I hate you, but if they're not there,
yeah,
if they're not to that point already, and then so anyway, be that
and it's always cool to
example.
see them. They like invite their friends now. They're like, hey, you want to come camping with us? And their friends are kind of like,
Nice,
camping? They're like,
right?
what? You guys
What's
camp? We're like,
camping?
it's like, yeah. Sometimes it's more like glamping, but I mean, we don't have very
So
many like.
what does that even mean? So camping is now glamping because of what? Because
I mean,
tell
because
me
of like all the
why.
you got a
So like
stove, right? You're
I'm
not
just
out here
saying
like
the white man back in 1860, you know, I don't know, compared to what, cuz
I mean, when you
it's
have
just
a like
funny. Everyone
we
associates
have
camping with being miserable. Where did that come
yeah,
from?
it's funny because like we have a bathroom for the girls that was their big want on the list is
Yes.
somewhere where they can use the restroom and things like that. So we've got like a little 5 gallon Home Depot bucket set up with the top on it. It's got bags that have the absorbent in it, and that's like their necessities, right? So I feel like us men, we don't really need that. We just kind of go out in the woods and do our thing and, come back. And, it's not
So
something that we really think of. But
what do you do with the the 5 gallon bucket? Like, where do you store it?
yeah, so I
And I
actually picked
understand
up,
there's probably nothing in it, but like, where do you store it?
yeah,
Does
so
it sit on someone's lap?
no, I haven't gotten that far yet. But, it's, the cool thing is it's the setup that we have. It's a double bag system, so it has like a Ziploc bag on top of another Ziploc bag, and it has an absorbent gel in it. So when they do their business, we swap out the bag, and the bag goes into I got a Trasharoo from Napa, the Maxi brand. It's like
Nice.
35-40 bucks at through Napa, but it was that's where the trash goes. So we just put it in there and and take it on home that way. But the bucket never gets dirty, so we just store that in the back with
But
the
is it
rest of the.
like in the way? You feel like it's in the way? Is it
So
too big?
it so we had one of the cheap like $19 foldable ones, and it was really it was compact. It was super nice. It packed right into a box that we had all the rest of our stuff in. But it just wasn't very sturdy or stable. Um, so we have recently done the bucket the past, I want to say 3 trips, and we just made room for it. Sometimes it's right on top of the cooler.
Oh, really?
It's yeah. So I mean, we have gotten it down to I'm in two like Rubbermaid buckets and the cooler in the back. That's about what the extent of what we pack. So we're kind of minimalist when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, um, we've got all of our plates and cooking supplies in one box, and then the dry food and other things in another box. So it's really we don't have a lot to pack, and we've brought all five of us a few times, and it gets a little more cramped. But sometimes that's part of the game. You got to play Tetris to fit everything back there, and especially when you're packing for five people for a weekend, you got to change the clothes for everybody and things like that. But for the most part, I mean, we got plenty of room back there, and the buckets play clutch a lot of times because it just keeps everything compact.
Yeah, so I feel like with my loadout, it's me, my wife, my son, and we'll take our little dog, our little Frenchie. And I got a 3rd-gen 4Runner. I've built a drawer system in the back. And pretty much, all we take with us is our bedding, our clothing, and I've got a fridge already. Our food's in there. Our dry goods are there. Everything else is already in there. And then I still feel like we're overloaded at times as a family. Now, whenever I go by myself, I just grab a duffel bag or whatever and just go. And because everything else is in there, I'll swing by the store, maybe grab some stuff. The last trip I did, I went to McDonald's, and I just played an experiment. So I got a 20-piece chicken nugget. I got 2 cheeseburgers, and I'm like, all right, that's dinner. Or I had lunch there when I got it, and then I was like, that's going to be dinner, and then that's going to be breakfast. And I'm serious. Every time I heated up the burger, McDonald's cheeseburger left over, I've just put it in foil, heated it up nice and slow. It was delicious. Same thing with the chicken nuggets. I put them in aluminum foil, heated them up, delicious. And then I tried to reheat them again. No. The second time was gross.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's just like, when you're camping with 5 people, you got five people's, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We don't have a refrigerator, so we're still rocking a Yeti cooler. So
the Yeti
you got
slushies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we do the lunch meat, sandwiches. We don't typically bring bread all the time. We do tortillas because tortillas are flat, and you don't have to worry about them getting squished.
Nice. I like that. Somebody said that one time to me in the podcast. I don't know who it was, but that was brilliant.
Yeah. And it also
and other people are doing that.
100%, and it also plays a big role. You could have breakfast burritos in the morning too if you're doing eggs and sausage and bacon, and it's like you got 2 meals, packed for one spot, So, but there are times where
you know what I just thought of? I haven't eaten dinner yet.
So
you just want to know? Returned from getting your face stuffed.
That's right, absolutely.
And now you're talking about food in front of me.
I know. Can you believe it? Then we'll throw a nice steak on there every once in a while, just to make your mouth drool a little bit there.
Hey, speaking of steaks, what do you guys cook with at camp? What's your go-to like?
So I have a Covea single burner with I have a cast iron skillet, and that's our go-to for everything.
What size skillet?
It is full size? It's a full size. I think it's 12-inch skillet. So we cook our eggs in there. I've done biscuits and gravy in the cast iron. I pre-made the biscuits before we went out there because I don't have like an oven. But you pre-make the biscuits, and then the gravy obviously will heat them up.
Pre-made biscuits, and this sounds ridiculous. Yes. If you put them in that plastic bag, and then you take them and put them for your biscuits and gravy, it's that extra soggy, whatever consistency is the best. And
absolutely.
I don't care if you've never had biscuits from a baggie from the next day or even later in the day, try it. You'll love it.
Well, they're gonna get soggy anyways when you slap a good ladle full of gravy on there.
Still, I haven't had dinner yet.
Yeah, we can still talk about food if you want.
Spit up my drink.
But it's it's pretty cool to learn different styles of cooking too. I mean, when you're out of, I've done chili a couple of times. That was super easy to make. And the kids absolutely love it, and it feeds a big group, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. That's the biggest thing when you're camping with your family. You got to figure out, all right, we have limited space of cooler space, so do we just
Yeah,
make everything refrigerated, or do we do a lot of like stuff that doesn't need to be refrigerated? So it's just planning it out properly. And I can tell you right now, if it was up to me, we probably wouldn't have half the things that we have, because my fiance takes care of literally everything when it comes to food. When we go out
that's
camping,
good.
and I just I'm there to cook. She loves it because she usually cooks in the house, but when we're at camp, she knows Daddy Bear's got this. I'm gonna whip up
That's
some,
that is
you know.
interesting. A lot of guys take over cooking at camp. It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
it's more
I've
primal. I don't know.
Man, I like it to be relaxing for everybody, personally.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
I like to kind of take that away from her responsibility of having to always do that at the house. So this is part of her kind of vacation, or
sure.
weekend off kind of thing. So it's important for us to do it. She's awesome. She still helps out with making sure all the dishes get washed, and things like that. And the kids definitely are a huge role into helping clean up camp, and things like that. So even to the point when we're trail riding, we keep a trash bag in the trasharoo, so that when we do stop and things like that, if they see trash, they pick it up. They've kind of done that. Yeah, we just like to keep it as nice as possible. Unfortunately, there are people that leave trash at the campsites, and it's up to us as good human beings and servants to this trade or this hobby to keep it nice for the next people.
Yeah, with all the trail closures now, they're trying to get all the ammunition they can, and we understand. Probably 75. I would say close to 60 to 70% of people that actually go out and camp and enjoy public lands and all that stuff, they are good stewards of the land. It's the other 30% or so, or whoever, that just ruin it for everybody. So, yes, it sucks rolling into camp and seeing diapers and glass in the fire pit, but take it out, y'all. It
Yeah. My
it
biggest thing
sucks.
with camping with the kiddos, especially if you're around water, is the broken glass. That's probably my biggest one that irritates me the most.
We camped in Colorado last a couple years ago, and we went to this beautiful campsite up in the mountains, and there was like a little glass looking pipe in there, and it could have been for marijuana, but it looked like something that a crack pipe. That's what it looked like,
Yeah.
and we were kind of like we drove out a ways. We were on kind of a trail in the middle of nowhere, Colorado, and we saw like a couple cars drive by, and we're like, what the heck? Like cars driving by up here, and we were in a 4-wheel drive, and it was just
Right.
like, it was bad. So we're like, let's just leave. So we did. It was like,
Yeah.
we wanted to be out there, and they just seemed a little rowdy.
I think situational awareness plays a big role into it. I mean, you got to remember you're going to places that don't typically have cell service.
Right.
So you have to be somewhat of aware of your surroundings, and it's definitely, if you don't feel comfortable, then there's 1,000 other places to stay. Just pick
Yeah.
a different spot. So
Yeah. That was towards the end of our Colorado trip. We were near Georgetown. I think this was Idaho Springs is kind of the area we were at, and we got kind of pushed out of the Idaho Springs camp because it was just eerie, and Kate racked up enough points or something, so we got a free hotel through something.
nice.
So at the end of the trip, like treat yourself a little bit. So we stayed in a hotel.
Yeah.
Just it was nice.
Well, it's all part of the adventure. sometimes it doesn't go as planned. I mean,
Right.
unfortunately, it happens, but
Adapt.
absolutely, and that's I think the biggest thing with this hobby is learning how to overcome certain obstacles. You know, you learn faith in your vehicle, you learn faith in your capabilities as survival, I guess, quote unquote. It's not like you're out there with nothing. You're not rubbing sticks together to start a fire, but
No, that's the thing, though. It's like a lot of people feel like, I've got buddies of mine. I'm like, hey, man, you should really get into this thing. And he's like, no, man, I prefer my bed. I'm like, dude, you could sleep so good out there and not be distracted by all this crap. And so some people are just, they won't have it. So I don't know how to get
yeah.
people involved.
Well, the cool thing is the fiance, she likes the rooftop tent sometimes more than our own bed at home. It's very comfortable, and you don't have like if you park next to the waterfall, you got the running water all night. It's just something peaceful about that.
Right.
Hearing the crickets and that kind of thing. So it
What
it
kind of
works out really nicely.
what kind of mattress do you guys have in your tent?
So we have the factory 23 mattress. It's a 3-inch thick memory foam. We haven't added anything to it or anything like that.
And you
Um,
guys like it?
oh, I love it. She loves it. It's super comforty to sleep in, and when we were on a ground tent, I mean, I had a cot. We did the air mattress thing. Just it never really was like that comfortable. But I mean, I know sometimes the rooftop tents they're not comfortable either. I mean, the best thing that I can tell you is head out to Artemis or somebody that supplies it and test it out before you buy it. And we were fortunate enough that I got my rooftop tent from a buddy of mine, and he ended up switching to a different a hard shell because mine's a soft shell. But he fell in love with it, and it just kind of passed down. So yeah, I mean, I recommend just trying them out before you make the investment. Make sure it's something that you are going to be comfortable sleeping in.
I think that there's like two companies out there that actually have decent stock factory mattresses, but 90% of them suck. And everyone's like, yeah, get a memory foam, ditch that thing, get a memory foam pad, throw it in there. Well, that to me was like way too much, it was thick, and then you had to like decompress it and all that stuff. I put up with that thing for almost a year and ditched it. And now I've got one of those self-inflating. It's not an X pad, but it's kind of like that. It's a R-rated material, and I inflate it with a. I don't do the self-inflating. I actually put a pump in it, and dude, that thing is a game changer for me because not only can I sleep excellent, I can suck that air back out of it, and then my tit is nice and compact and tight. It's not bulging like it was.
Bulging,
And
yeah.
so
And
I
that's the
think
biggest
people
thing
need to
is
skip the memory foam, just go straight to an inflating mattress.
absolutely. And the biggest thing is you never know what you need until you go out there and do it. That's how we learn a
Right.
lot of things of like, when we were tent camping, it's like you're having to set up all the poles and having to find level ground and is this spot perfect? Is it not? Once we get this staked down, whatever. But and then you're like, man, a rooftop tent would be nice. And then you just start saving up for that. And then we had we didn't have a stove right away. We were cooking stuff by the campfire. We just had
Yeah.
the iron, the cast iron skillet. And then we ended up finding a Covea stove, and it was like one of my best investments. And then we went winter camping, and my Covea runs off of butane, and we figured out that butane doesn't handle cold very well, so we weren't able to cook off of it. And
Man.
so now we have our sights on a dual fuel camp stove, still made by Covea. Just it'll accept propane. So when we do go winter camping, that we can, rock the propane tank instead of the butane. So I mean, you live and let learn. We've added things and took things out and just kind of played around with our setup. But I think that we have it pretty much dialed in, except for a couple of little things. And of course, would it be nice to have the best of the best of everything? Sure,
Right.
but when you've got the family the size of ours, you really got to limit yourself on your spending habits for sure.
I feel like a lot of people get into this very minimalist because of the aspect in coming in. Once they get comfortable with it, they get excited, and then they start going to town on buying crap. And I think after a while, they're like, I've got way too much crap, so let's offload it. Mm-hmm. And I think once you're on, all right, so I always say we're on different journeys. I think there's 3 tiers of that journey, and that's the best to describe it. Is starting out, you're overcomplicating it, and then you're simplifying it, and now you're on your chosen path.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that's a good way to describe it. So,
yeah, I mean,
again, going back to budget stuff, you can go on, Marketplace and stuff like that and buy this gear too.
Find the people on the journey that are offloading it.
That's right. Exactly, man. And they're going to be so generous too, because tell us that story whenever you guys were at Rendezvous. Tell us that. I love it. When people were rolling up to the newbies. Yeah.
So when we were at RITO this year, we had a big group with us, and we ended up with a Jeep that is just starting out. They had a ground tent. I probably had that thing packed wall to wall. I mean, they had this huge ground tent. They had all this tables and stuff, and it was really cool because they were just basically starting out. And when we went trail running, we all aired down, and they had an air down kit, and they aired down with us. But when we got back to camp, they were like, "Man, we need to borrow somebody's air pump." I was like, "Nice. Well, this is the perfect time," because I literally took my buddy Charlie's, and I had my air pump. So I gave it. I let them use it. He was like, "Man, this is really sweet. Where'd you get it?" And I said, "Well, I'm glad you like it because it's yours now." And he was just like, "That's super cool, man." And I mean, it's the small things like that. Like
right.
when my buddy Charlie, he's getting a onboard ARB, so he didn't need his anymore. So he let me upgrade to his, and I let this guy have mine. So it's just what we're all about, the community of people that quote unquote overland or camp or whatever you want to call it. I've never met anybody that's like not willing to share how they got where they're at, and
it's the best community. It's so good. Like everyone just shares anything with you,
hands down. And I enjoy just learning different trails from people that have they're local to the area, and they take you on these backwoods and adventure trails that you would have never even found.
Right.
I don't care how hard you mapped it. It's really cool and amazing to see the areas that they can take you to, and where this will lead you. I mean, we've seen stuff that you could never imagine seeing, from animals to beautiful sceneries first thing in the morning to the Buffalo River, some of the most gorgeous camping spots you can get in the national forest.
Do you ever watch Baker Overland?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
I do.
So I love that he's a storyteller, and we always joke, he tell him he's the historian, Overlander or whatever.
Yeah,
roll
for
with
sure.
it, but I love I'm gonna screw up his name. It's the Erskine's video that he did. It's probably a year and a half ago now.
Mm-hmm.
But that was an early explorer, maybe a trapper. I would say in the early 1800s or late 17, probably early 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, I need to get with him on this, but there's a grave site or a marking out there where he's buried, and it's not known where he's at. There's like a handful of people that actually know and have confirmed where this dude's buried.
Right.
And Baker's on this. He's on this hunt to do this.
To find it. Yeah, for sure.
And he's been in talks with guys who have done it,
Right.
but in good spirit and everything. They're not telling him they're just saying, you might want to look in this area. You might want to not look in that area. Subtle hints and stuff. But
Right.
I'm wanting to go with him this fall or winter or whatever, and look for this grave. So he's getting close to it. So
that's
I
cool.
think, yeah, the historical side of overlanding, to me, going on trails, and you look, especially in the Ozarks, you can look over and see those stone walls, from years gone by. So who knows how long those things been there.
Well, it's like
those are really fun.
when we first started doing this, we would go by the Union Schoolhouse, and it was built in like the 1940s or whatever it was. And before, you could pull up right to the front door, and they had people that were vandalizing it, and they were doing donuts in the grass. And so I understand people like trying to, hide things like that, because not everybody deserves the opportunity to enjoy it like the rest of us. And it's we do the poker run every year for the Union Schoolhouse, because the money that goes to that goes back into the schoolhouse. They replace the windows.
So you went to the one a couple weeks ago?
So I didn't, because we were at Big Iron. I think that they overlapped, or we were at RITO, one of the two. So this year we weren't able to.
It was the week before RITO.
Was it the week before? Yeah. So we had Big Iron, and then 2 weeks later we had RITO. So it was just a lot to do.
Well, it looks like they had a good turnout though this year.
Yeah, I mean, we went to the first one and the second one. Actually, my forerunner was on the Facebook page announcement for the poker run, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Nice.
It was a bigger side-by-side group that went out there, but there was some of us that went out there, and it's just cool to support that kind of stuff.
They
it's
do good with it.
It was an awesome turnout the 2 years that we went. I mean, they raised enough money to build the fence around the whole property and put up cameras the first year, and then they built they did the roof last year, and replaced some windows that were broken out. So it's cool, because our kids get to learn how kids back in 1940 used to walk to school, and they didn't have buses, and how they learned. They had chalkboards
in the middle of nowhere, man.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's
in the middle of nowhere now. It was in the middle of nowhere back then.
Of course, yeah. So, and we do Spud Warren's cabin. We call it Bud's cabin, because Bud is usually out there and greeting everybody that comes up there. But that's super cool. Little spot too, and luckily Bud protects that place pretty good.
Well, what's funny is he bought that for the timber and stuff to log out there, and that house, whoever owned that property, they're like, the heck with the house, he's just buying the timber around it.
Yep.
And then he's like, what was it, 20 or 30 or 40 years ago? He said he's like, I started working on it and kind of turning it back into something.
Yeah, and I mean it's fully furnished now, and man, I think he's going to be like 90 this year. I think that's what he was saying. And he's still out there splitting logs and cutting trees, and riding a 4-wheeler. I mean, that man just does not stop working,
and he loves it when people show up there every Saturday. Yeah. He's typically out there every Saturday.
Yep, and it was cool, because RITO, he was like, man, is there an event going on? Because there's a lot of people out here, and I'm like,
really?
Yeah, there's, yep. So he was.
Did you guys go out there to his cabin this past one, or just in years past?
No, we did it
this year.
He was out there this year. Yep, we went out there Saturday, and we did Union Schoolhouse, and we did Bud's cabin.
Nice.
I had a pretty good sized group that has really never really explored that area. So
nice.
It was an old trip for us and new to them. So
that's good.
Yeah, it's I could take that trip, between this Union Schoolhouse up past the Union Schoolhouse and Bud's cabin probably 1,000 times, and never get old. With the trail's kind of technical north of the schoolhouse, but it's a fun trip.
Don't go through anybody's yard. They've got dogs.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
That is true.
I drove through there on our February trip, and this dog bit a hole in my trasheroo, but it didn't rip out, but it got about 6-inch cut in it. I'm like, sheesh.
Yeah, we usually cruise through there with our windows down and things like that. And every time we come by that house with all the dogs, I'm like, all right, roll them up.
Roll them up. We got a live one.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. So, but it's it's cool. Like you get to explore those new areas. So
that's just all about it.
Well, and you, like I said, you learn the history of what people went through to navigate this land, and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe that the river was always there, and at times they had to cross it, and it's crazy.
A different wild world, or as we would say, a simpler time.
That's right.
That was a living hell for those folks. They just didn't know any better.
It's like glamping.
All right, man, we're running out of airtime here. How can people get a hold of you?
So we are on Instagram, Connell.Adventures, and then that's the only spot we're at. So feel free to reach out, follow. We're part of a big group of Toyotas, and we accept Jeeps and everybody. We're all about it. So don't be afraid to reach out if you're in the area and want to explore. We're always down. So
heck yeah. All right, man. Any final words of wisdom or advice to anyone?
Just get out there and enjoy it. Have fun. It's some of the best stuff you'll ever see, and get the family involved, and it'll be good. It'll be a good time.
Yep. All right, guys. Don't forget to tune back in on Monday for Overland Shenanigans. I will see you then. Bye-bye.